This session is on advancing data center construction, and we're looking at AWP and Lean. We've got Haney Noshi from Microsoft and Yogesh Shrivastava.
Tava.
How do you pronounce
After 15 years?
that? I know. I always get those.
Shrivastava.
Shrivastava. I apologize. And we've only known each other for 15 years, so, you know.
That's all.
So I'm going to hand it over to the two of them. I think this is going to be a really interesting presentation, and I'll let you two go.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Just a sound check quickly. Hello.
Check.
Okay, how is everybody doing this far? Good? This is one of the latter part of the sessions, but I hope all the patience and all what you have been here for will not go in vain. Advancing data center construction and the combination of advanced work packaging and lean that you have been hearing a lot about is something which I would say fits very nicely with each other, and you've heard this many times. But even before we talk about AWP, lean, integrated project delivery, and TAC planning, and so many more methods. Yesterday, there was a session on culture. And for culture, I would like to pick up from that point of view. Culture requires a simple mantra. And that mantra, if we internalize it, we put it into daily practice, we make it as something of value, then only culture comes by repeating that time and time again. And when the whole organization does it, that's where we go. So when we talk about advanced work packaging or lean, the mantra behind that is to build better in a safe, smart, and sustainable manner and continue to reduce wastage wherever we find it, reduce rework, reduce interruptions. So both of these go in tandem, and I'm really fortunate that this discussion that has evolved over the 15 odd years has come to a point where it's not only productivity and efficiencies, it is also about reducing wastage, rework, and many other things. Together, partnering with Haney, we would like to now take you through a journey of how we are achieving some of these fundamentals into what is called data center construction projects as an example, but underlying that is a lot of processes, and then comes the data, and then comes the data center. Henny, you want to add something?
No, all good. Yeah, very good.
Just from our profile, I come with 30 plus years in the heavy industrial construction projects, worked largely with Fluor in Calgary in Canada. So as TechnoBuild CEO for the company, we are focused around digitally enabling project delivery. And within that, we have incorporated some of the best practices so that it's a no-brainer that what needs to be done, you have digital guardrails to do that. I've been co-chair for Construction Owner Association of Alberta till 2022 for the AWP committee and contributed to the IR 272. And prior to that, worked in Middle East and the Philippines before coming to Canada 25 years ago. Henny.
All right, good afternoon. I want to say it a little bit louder. Good afternoon. All right, that's better. My name is Haney. I am part of Microsoft's cloud operations and innovation team, essentially the team behind the cloud. We design, engineer, procure, and construct and operate all the data centers globally for Microsoft. We have an amazing opportunity ahead of us to really apply advanced work packaging and lean. And between us and our partnership, we are absolutely thrilled to have this overview today. My background is 25 plus years of experience across EPC, mostly in the design side and also in the commissioning end of it. And part of my career was in consulting within capital projects, spent about a decade at Accenture Consulting. Pleasure to be here.
Let's start with the project paradigm. People. Quite often this comes that people, process, technology. But if you truly look at people, really, are they the problem? As you'll go to the field, when I was in Fort Mac and working on some of these oil sands projects, if you look at people individually, everybody wants to do a good job. Nobody really is going there to just, very seldom you'll find that somebody is maliciously wanting to go and make things worse. So people, I don't see that they are the problem. And when you talk about process, most of you know what AWP is, and all other processes are there. Everyone knows what to do. So do you think process is a problem? We need to improve our processes. We want to improve all this workflows and other things. Is process truly a problem? I think everyone knows what to do. Technology, systems and tools. There is abundance of technology and data is everywhere. So there's no lack of data, by the way. And we keep rushing to get data as if it's the new gold. I want more data, more data. And then we create all these standards and everything else. But the guy who's really building and pouring the foundation, he needs to know 6 feet by 12 feet by 4 feet, how deep it is. Just tell me the once, and then don't change it. I mean, there is no undo button in the field. So till the 3D model and all that stuff, what it has done, we can keep changing the design as much time as we want. But the guy in the field, he can't do that, undo or redo it any time. So I think data, in terms of coding the data, correlating the data, and connecting it to the process, if we can do it better, data can sit wherever it is. Because data, as soon as it leaves my authoring tool and my jurisdiction as an author, is obsolete. So if you want to hold a whole lot of data in a big data lake, I think all I needed was a bucket to do my job. So please think about data one more time. As to when we are building stuff, all I need is the context in which I need it. Everything else, when it is all built, the digital twin, how it was, it's good. But while I'm building, data is changing. Single source of truth doesn't mean the data should be at a single place. And single source of truth doesn't mean in construction, truth is changing every day. What was true yesterday is changed. So in construction projects in the built environment, when we're building things, truth is dynamic. And that's what we want to be able to accomplish. The change is the name of the game. We change that barren land to build a complex or a facility or whatever else. That's change. We change the drawings, we change the landscape. So that's about data. I thought I'll spend some more time in this because it has been a topic of discussion for quite a while. Anything you want to add on data?
No, I think you've actually covered it extremely well.
Yeah. I guess
Okay,
take it away.
so what are some of the key challenges and outcomes that we want to achieve here? So in a specific project, especially if you're doing a design bid build, there are tons of information flow. Just a show of hands, who's familiar with a value stream map? One of the pretty common value stream tools out there. In one of my prior projects, I've actually mapped the end-to-end value stream, and that's, by the way, not a process map, it's a value stream map. The difference is it has information flow, it has physical flow, it's got inventory flow, it's got a bunch of things on it. Interfaces with IT systems and all the bells and whistles you could imagine. On a typical one project, this was about $1 billion project or so, Does anyone want to guess how much times the information flow goes back and forth between an architect to a contractor to the owner to the OEM suppliers? Who thinks it's over 1 million times in the life cycle of a project? Who thinks it's over 2 million times information flow back and forth, back and forth? Who thinks it's over 3 million times? It's actually it's in the millions. It's over 5 million times of information flow back and forth in a single project life cycle. That is a lot. Any one of these can result in a rework loop, in lost time, lost information, dropped opportunities. So as an owner, we have a very massive challenge ahead of us. Yes, we could do a 3 bids and a buy approach. Great. Do we leave it up to the GC? They're going to take care of everything? Doesn't work that way. Does not work that way. So we need to have the visibility across the board between architects on the top, our OEM suppliers on the right-hand side, and our contractors or general contractors, and have a unity of the circular flow with the owner in the center of all of that, understanding the transparency of everything that's actually going on. I'll give you a very good example. One of my colleagues went to a construction site building an actual data center, and the E&I sub was actually working there. They were about a week behind or so. So we went ahead and shared with them the actual P6 file. They're like, actually, you're supposed to be about 2 months ahead at this point. The E&I contractor basically said, well, that's garbage. You might as well go ahead and throw it in the actual trash. That's never what happens on the site. So how can you execute a project with this type of complexity? And going back to the actual session we had, how do you get that near real-time visibility of all this information flow? So you can plan as much as you want. I mean, yes, we have to plan. We have to spend the right amount of time planning, but we also have to manage our execution, all the way from the owners to the engineering, to the procurement, to the fabrication yards, to the subs, and all the way back again to the owner themselves. And understand that there's a ton of fragmentation on the value chain that we need to have the right visibility of what's happening. I think somebody mentioned in the last presentation, by the time you get an updated P6 file in your weekly schedule reviews, it's already 2.5 weeks late. So how do you react to that? By being reactive and trying to catch up again, and the next time, and the next week, and the next week, and the next week. At the end of the day, you're looking at lagging indicators. Have I met my commissioning and startup date? Well, what are we doing about being reactive all the way in front and managing that risk appropriately up front? So those were some of the challenges that we have every day. So if you manage risk late, this is a hypothetical example, you're obviously year over year, roughly based on our industry benchmarks, through change orders and the MOC process, we can add about 3% of cost every single month from industry benchmarks across the globe. I'm not going to mention any specific industry. That's going to add up at the end of the day with either cost overruns and schedule overruns. And you've seen the slides. Bain, McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, Ernst & Young, they all have the slide. Capital projects, 80% over schedule, 80% over budget. I've seen hundreds of those, right? But what are we going to do about them? What are we going to do about them? So I like the call for action that Jay indicated the other day. What is the call for action? What are we going to do about it? It really scares me that we've been talking about this for quite some time. I can remember we're talking about this. What are we going to do about it? So I think we have a real opportunity ahead of us, especially in the industry we're in right now, and I'll share why in just a second. But this is not a pretty picture. Once I looked at this picture, I'm like, okay, this really resembles something that's very near and dear to me. This actually resembles the outcome of the house we actually built. So we actually built a house about 10 years ago, and we ended up with cost overruns and schedule overruns. I will attribute half of that to scope, and that's attributed to my spouse. Upgrades, features, upgraded hardwood floors, countertops, all the bells and whistles, and I end up with the actual budget at the end, okay? All right, half of that is actual scope, that's fine. But what about the other half of stuff? that's non-scope related. Well, guess what? Halfway through our build cycle, the fireplace came in, and it was too heavy. The actual structural engineers did not reinforce the flooring, the subflooring, to carry the weight of the actual fireplace. So what ended up happening? Project stopped for a month and a half. How much work happened to that? 0. 0% of work happened during that time. Entire project was on hold. Can't put the fireplace, can't put the flooring on top, can't put the hardwood on top, can't finish the actual drywalls, can't do anything. What happened? The architect forgot to pass that information to the actual builder, or in this case, the actual home builder in there. So, and that's a very simple example. And that example really hung up with me for quite some time now. And that's a simple project. Now we expand that 1 million times, and we end up with what we're actually doing there. But I really love this chart. Anyways. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? So time to market is everything. In the industry that we're in right now, especially in constructing data centers, everyone hears, right? We need more cloud, we need capacity in the cloud. We need to build more and more and more. I'm very envious in the industry I'm in because I came from the oil and gas industry. And I would be lucky to work on the same project and the same one project from the beginning, from pre-planning all the way to first oil. Some of those span about 8 years. The one I've been on at BHP was 8 years long. You would rarely find one person that was at the beginning of the project that's the same individual at the end, right? And then the project team turns over again and you get a whole different project, right? But in the data center industry, I'm pretty envious the fact that we have an opportunity to really apply a manufacturing mindset. Design one, build many. So how can we do that? So I think AWP and Lean together can really help us create the manufacturing blueprint to help us rinse and repeat, design one, build many. So that's the opportunity we have ahead of us. I'll be honest with you, advanced work packaging has not been tried in the data center construction industry. There was an attempt with a different company, I'm not going to mention names, that was not very successful. So this opportunity is huge, and I think the return on investment could be absolutely massive. As you can see, time to market is everything over here, right? So not only you get an advantage on your schedule, but you can also get an advantage on your cost. And we are going to quantify all of these elements. Okay.
Yeah. Just on another experience, we were in Korea, and this organization wanted to study AWP, put 18 members as a separate task force to go into the depths of AWP. And after having co-authored this best practice in 3 volumes, it's not that complicated, but many months, 18 people, individual departments, I thought they earned a PhD in AWP. I mean, so much effort is going in just trying to understand if that is the way you are trying to bring it. And there's no real project to start off with, and then you try to sample it all out and do simulations with it. A lot of effort was spent. Maybe the capital projects can do it. But the challenge in this situation with Microsoft especially, there are hundreds of data centers, they are already in the go. And there is not enough time to do a multi-month or multi-year type of education portion of it. Pardon some of the people who are into training, it's required, but the scenario here is slightly different, okay? So how can there be digital guardrails where people who do their job, like they go to Toyota and they do what they're supposed to do in their assembly line without having to understand the whole, how does the new Toyota Corolla works and what is the engine, how everything works. So the important thing is the ability to do AWP and Lean without really having to go through the big, long cycle of understanding and doing all of it. How can we standardize it so that it becomes a de facto way of your engagement in the project? There's a chassis that is coming in the assembly line, and I add what I'm supposed to do, and the next guy behind me is doing what they're supposed to do. If we can just simplify this and get this started, then Microsoft can benefit from it. So important was, I don't know A of AWP, but can I still deliver project successfully, accelerate project delivery?
Perfect, thank you. So the question for us is to have a clear definition early in the business requirements to understand what are the key strategic value drivers for this actual project. Is it a schedule-driven project? Is it a cost-driven project? So understanding the dimensions that are very important, and every stakeholder has to have a very clear definition of what are the key strategic value drivers of the project. Is it speed? Do you want to be really schedule-driven, or do you want to be cost-efficient from a capital efficiency and a TIC perspective, right? So I think for us, having the right balance of all of these parameters was absolutely key. But I think what was more important is to have the right cascading of KPIs and objectives and key requirements to the entire organization to understand what are the key drivers of this project. And in some cases, you have to prioritize the speed over cost or capital efficiency, right? So understanding what, again, I'm not saying it's the only important factor, but from a net present value, which parameter trumps the other. I think the deep understanding of that is absolutely key. And I'll be honest with you, we're still early in our journey of advanced work at packaging. We have a lot to go. We're in the process of actually piloting at the moment. And we've got a long journey ahead of us, and it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of hearts and minds to actually change. And I think of this, 80% culture. So that's absolutely going to be absolutely key. With that, I will hand it over to Yogesh.
I think going digital, data, all this is good, but until there is a method improvement, we are basically contributing to more waste. And data itself could be more waste. It desensitizes us, confuses us, and the important thing, that is in the hundreds of emails that you've got, you miss it out. So you can go astray with too much of data. And doing this faster with digital without a method improvement, of course, is a problem. We don't get anywhere further. So with that, advanced work packaging, early in 2010, 2011, we were part of the IR 272. Those days, we were just contributing to the subject matter, and we're passionate about it. Robin and others, we were part of that team, and putting together what would benefit the industry. And we were coming from Alberta, where we operate in a very harsh environment. Time window for construction is quite narrow, and people, resources, availability is very, necessity became mother of invention. Workplace planning in 2003, Lloyd, where is he? Oh, maybe somewhere outside. That's when he started with providing a basis for what we will do as workplace planning. That advanced to become advanced, that was further developed in collaboration with CII to what is now AWP. I led for 10 years the AWP committee that we were running out of Canada in Alberta. But all along, manufacturing projects, that has been a goal, because early in my career in coming out of engineering and instrumentation, I was pulled into what is called Intergraph Plant Design System, PDS those days, and Unix and VAX VMS. So the whole plant was right in front of me, and until working in floor and starting to go at site, I used to think the whole darn thing is here, quantities are here, interference detection is there, you can walk through it, check clearance, what more do we need? Why can't we build better? Until I myself was thrown at site, and then I see, well, okay, geez, okay. So that concept, after being on the Curl project, kind of gave me that what could go wrong? We assumed that all these super modules will come, they will land, and it will all the way tracked up to Alberta, and we'll install them quickly. Guess what happened? Over 200 modules had to be, they landed, they were split here because they could not get the right of way. Every module was split, $1 million per module, and then they were reassembled. So things go wrong, okay? So lean, how do we understand lean? Because we have, lean itself, it's a 40, 50-year-old philosophy, they talk about the 5 S's of lean. Standardize things, sort, set in order, shine it, and sustain it. And it's not good that one model of Toyota came out like this with a great quality and great performance. One after another. So if each work package, one after another, and there are 10,000 of them in the installation, or 1,800 for the engineering and construction work packs, how can we do this consistently, repeatedly? That is important for us. And this is where I want to introduce you to these 5 S's of lean everybody knows. And there are people from the lean who practice that extensively. 5 S's of lean, is that correct? Yeah? 5 S? We want to introduce the 6th S of lean, and that's scope. In manufacturing, it's clear. All of us who are in the assembly line, it is clear to us that what are we contributing value to? We are contributing value to a new model, which has a chassis, which has every design is very known. I have my station where I'm supposed to go and do my part. In construction, what happens? I really don't know what area I'm going to work in. And what I'm doing, am I adding value in it? So there was a very good example Jay mentioned in the morning, that there was the third person whom that guy queried. She told that she's part of a project where she's dedicated herself, she likes what she's doing, and she's happy to come to work. So where are we adding value if we can provide that scope in a clear manner, which I believe advanced work packaging does? We talk about alignment, but alignment is a continuous process. But somewhere we have to achieve what I call agreement. I can divide this work in 8 construction work packages, 6 construction work packages, or many others. But once we agree that we will do this in 6 work packages, construction has said it, engineering has confirmed that, yeah, my logic of engineering can do that for us, and project controls is supporting it, and all my coding and other thing is agreed on. That agreement on scope in advance by all parties basically helps us bring lean and AWP together. So the 6th S in lean, if we want to adopt, we can't simply copy what manufacturing does. I believe that if we can take scope that is very nicely managed through AWP and sets it out early with all parties, get that alignment, then we are talking about AWP and lean. But how good this is, philosophically it sounds great, but how do I visualize my scope? That's where the digital concept comes into play, that if I can create that scope and start visualizing it while I'm still in feed, I haven't really frozen my plot plan, and the model is probably end of feed going to be 10% complete. How do I align early? That is important for us to be able to see from a digital point of view. And these 2 best practices, when they are implemented together, you can talk about other principles in lean, which is the Kanban, the visibility of scope to all parties at all time, across the stages, from feed, detail, engineering to construction to commissioning. If you can do that, then we are talking about Kanban. And work pack after work pack, if I can improve the confidence on what I need to build, then we are talking about Kaizen, continuous improvement. We talk about lessons learned, etc. What good is a lesson learned if I can't apply in my next week or my next work package? So Kaizen is very important in there, and so does other philosophies come into play, but they are all now work pack by work pack, okay? But important thing, the way we are addressing this is, when we talk about packaging, it typically sends a signal in our mind that when things are ready, I'll throw this over, there is an analog type of a correlation to it. There are documents, drawings, and all that stuff. But when I look at it from a concept of a digital block, which precedes the package, and a package, it precedes the schedule, because the block consumes the component of what is relevant to that scope in that dynamically, then you are handling data in a context which can help speed up the job, okay? And there also comes the digital tech into play, where you are looking at the process augmented with the data. This is connected from the field by devices, RFID or IoT or many other things. And the mobile apps, the tablets, all that come into play. You start giving context to it. But there are so many data points, you do need machine to augment your project intelligence. So machine learning comes into play. And that's what we apply. When we are talking about lean, it is the ability to, in the past, in the production system, if there is a defect or a quality issue, in the lean concept, the brilliance was the ability to identify quality issue and stop the assembly line, get it fixed rather than recalling all of this. So they focused on the quality of this. Similarly, when we are picking up all the data points, if there is deficiencies in the scope and the ability to execute that scope, we need to pick that up sooner. And if we pick that up sooner, we can do something about it. Otherwise, the whole thing unfolds in the field in a very difficult way. And that's where that block also helps in fetching data from the relevant authoring tools when the other party needs it, because you've coded it right, you've connected it right, and it is belonging to a process and it flows. Debottlenecking the flow of data, I believe, is the most important thing, because there are many people who want that data. So that's an important part, and these blocks flow faster in a digital assembly line. And that's where the model, the schedule, or what you have really accomplished at site, they all come together. And why constraint management only for the people who are in the trades? Constraints are even from engineering point of view. How we digitally optimize constraints at all stages of the project. For example, if I am supposed to release the PNIDs, I'm waiting for heat and mass balance from process, or the single line diagrams need some information from the other disciplines. There are constraints, interdisciplinary constraints. So there are predecessors and there are preceding activities. If we can digitally optimize that, all that comes into play. I'm touching on the method improvement as an important part of what is the fundamental basis that can accelerate project delivery. Because we have a history, 9 times out of 10, things get delayed and over budget. So the chances of success is 1 in 10. So we have to do something different, otherwise we are just one more of the same old story. And in that context, the last part I want to talk about is materials. As much as is the plan and the drawings available, when I was at site, if you have sent material to site, in construction, we have a strong affinity towards material, and we gravitate to do something with the material. So we start and stop. Crews have to be busy. It is out of sequence or whatever, no, doesn't matter. If material is there, we find some way to install it somewhere. So it's really important. And the important part there is construction is operating largely as a receiver. Whatever was given, we are responding to it. So the forecast-based material planning of required at site date, somebody put that RAS date 6 months or 12 months ago, but probably the demand has changed and we do not know what has changed and material starts arriving. So the visibility of supply chain is not that clear, but the ability to have construction demand material in quantities associated to the blocks of construction, if they are in that position, then we are truly hitting success with what we call advanced work packaging. Otherwise, we created all these work packs, but the reality is different. People are not even touching the work packs at many times, okay? So that's very important. Material focus is part of it. And with that much of a background, back to you, Henny.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Yogesh. All right, so in this area of the presentation, we're going to focus more on the applied example and the actual case. And as I mentioned earlier, we're beginning in the journey of implementation at this point, okay? So early on, and I think there was a slide that was here the other day, there's multitude of methodologies out there, right? Advanced work packaging, look-aheads, transformation around lean. There's quite a bit of methodologies on there. How we found it that's going to suit us best is a blend of these. I look at advanced work packaging as a hybrid push versus pull, whereas lean is mostly based on a pull system, right? So based on the customer demand, or what we call talked rate, we have a pull system associated with that. And I see AWP and lean working very well with each other. So on the front end, you got your integrated EPC business planning, and you start developing your master schedules that's integrated across the board. So you optimize at your level 1, level 2 schedule. Onboarding the actual GC and our contracts and our AEs, and then you come up to your actual baseline, a P6 approach, right? So where we saw advanced work packaging extremely well is able to translate that 10,000 line item P6 into manageable chunks of work. And in this case, it was about 40 construction work packages, right? So all of a sudden, you have a 10,000 line P6 that only the planners and the actual schedulers could actually understand, yet alone the actual project manager, into a manageable scope of work, which we call the network diagram, which is an interrelated series of construction work packages with very logical sequence along the path of construction. So all of a sudden, we were able to share that with a much broader participants in your capital project. So that's where we say, a big chunk of advanced work packaging is there. In order to make this operational, we said, okay, we love the look-aheads because it gives you this proactive nature of seeing, what's ahead. And that was a fundamental shift into the way we started thinking. It's now about asking what activities are actually starting 12 weeks from now, yet alone activities that are ending. Now we're having a kind of a mindset shift and understanding, okay, what's the look-aheads? What's happening 12 weeks from now? Which construction work packages are actually going to kick off 12 weeks from now? And then we would do the same thing with a T+6 and a T+3. So a T+12, T+6, and T+3 to understand here's all the activities that are coming and what we can do about them, which is absolutely key. And it's that discussion where the value is very, very critical. And then where I see lean being very powerful, one of the major opportunities of lean is the visual management aspect of lean. A very powerful tool is your Kanban boards, your huddles, and those are all great. And it works very well with your actual look-aheads in there. So all of a sudden, you now translate something to much more actionable work and a much more proactive approach into managing your actual execution of your project. So on the bottom left-hand side there, you see some specific legend keys, right? So you got obviously project controls, advanced work packaging. We also talked planning, which is focused on area-based approach for your actual work in there. So we found that there's a lot of great synergies between all of these. So what does it look like on a project? Well, this is a top view of an actual site. I'm not going to mention the location. But as you can see, we did go ahead and start with an area-based approach. One thing that was very important for us is at the beginning of the project, we'd have a plot plan view and defining your construction work areas on that. And then from there, we had a very good view of what are those areas. From there, we took that one step further and looked at some of the sub-areas and construction work packages underneath that. So we were able to fully understand the actual scope of work that's in there. Again, you could use this on an Esri or a GIS plot plan, which can give you the actual real-time coordinates or the actual coordinates of the actual work itself. And then we said, gosh, we've got a lot of projects on the go, Not just one, not 5, but over 100. Where do we start? Do we start with a project that's early in design? Do we start in pre-feed? Do we start in feed? Do we start with a project already in execution? Or the one in a commissioning handover? Obviously, it's way too late for AWP to start with a project that's in construction. That's a no-brainer. But we had to start somewhere. And having those quick wins were absolutely key for us in order to get the ground running. So we actually did start with a project that's in construction to understand how we could actually get that early warning indicator or the predictability aspect of AWP. So all of a sudden, we can start looking at being more predictable in what we do. Forget acceleration. Let's just get predictable first before even talking about schedule acceleration. That's a big win by being predictable, okay? So we said, okay, let's really start with the first one, which is a scenario 1, and let's start with a project in construction. The second scenario is, okay, let's start with something that's halfway in the design cycle. So we can start impacting the actual BIM model and the actual CWP areas within the actual BIM model. So that's kind of where our scenario 2 is. And then our third scenario, which I believe, which is going to be the biggest shift in mindset and culture, and also the heaviest lift, is a project that's yet to start from a planning perspective, right? So that's the full enchilada of everything. Obviously, from an AWP perspective, that was going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, because you're going to start earlier. You can impact your EWPs, your CWPs, your IWPs, and everything associated with that. So that's essentially where we are. But we had to start somewhere to get that buy-in from management and to demonstrate those quick wins on an actual project. So what were some of the challenges that we actually had? Well, we did have a few of those. From a strategy, implementation, and cultural standpoint, and again, these are not just challenges with us, these are industry-wide challenges, but I do resonate with quite a few of these, right? So your program has to be owner-driven. I don't see the GC coming and saying, okay, yeah, we understand AWP and we're going to implement them and we're going to pass on the results. That's not going to work. So it's got to be owner-driven. The second is, what happens if you have limited top-down support? How do you get the buy-in from leadership? Well, we have also the education, the training, all the good stuff. But you got to demonstrate that value in parallel. So how we did that is we looked at a couple of projects running in parallel behind the scenes versus a live project to understand how much gain in schedule predictability we can actually get. From an implementation standpoint, the lack of understanding, people need to understand, even at a high level. We don't have to start in day one with 100 AWP champions, okay? You don't have to have 200 workface planners on day one. We had to start somewhere, okay? So some good basic understanding of the methodology was absolutely key, right? Common data. We spoke this morning about what's the common data environment, what's the data governance and the data standards, what's the data taxonomy. So we started with a simple work breakdown structure, level 1, level 2, level 3. Same coding across the organizations. And we kept it to that, very simple. What's the right work breakdown structure? And we got that across the board. And the third one there, for an implementation standpoint, was the integration with other systems. I will be honest, one of the first reactions when you say, okay, I'm going to bring another system or technology, you're like, no. We got SAP, we got SAP HANA, we got Enterprise EPPM, we got, Compass Dynamics, a CRM, we got a lot of software. We got P6, we got a lot of software going on. So we had to start somewhere. So we kind of crawl, walk, run approach. We said, okay, we're going to start with a simple Excel spreadsheet. We're going to use that. How are we tracking?
I just want to remind, Microsoft makes software.
So that was a challenge, right? He's like, wait, you're coming to me with a software package? We can create that, right? So that was definitely a challenge, for sure. That was definitely a challenge. Culture, one of the most important points there, right? So your GCs have to be on board. The general contractors in the AEC industry are not as mature as in the oil and gas, mining, and heavy industries. 90% of our general contractors, they don't know what AWP is. I haven't even heard of it. So what do? We've got to get them on board, maybe train them, maybe pilot with them. So that's absolutely key. What do you think engineering said? Oh my gosh, you're going to add more time to my design. Our design is, by the way, it takes weeks for the design, not years, weeks. Okay, construction takes months. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? You're going to add 2 weeks to my design cycle. That's going to really be a problem because our SLAs is this. So we had to get them on board, understand what's the value for engineering. And there's definitely huge value with them. And the biggest one was like, hey, we can condition your BIM model to have area-based construction work breakdown structures color-coded in your BIM model. So that was absolutely something that was absolutely key. Okay, I see Lloyd giving me the 5-minute warning.
15.
Oh, 15, okay.
Yeah. 3 times.
I said 5 times. Okay, I got the code, so this, okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you 4 things. One is to democratize your actual schedule. Instead of having just your planners and your schedules owning P6, let's have that across the board through the block-based infrastructure. The second was to have logical blocks or chronological blocks of order. And as I mentioned, we had about 40 construction work packages from a standard P6 on there. RFIs. Sometimes you have a few of those. So really before your execution and construction start, we need to vet every single one of those RFIs, embed them in your next design so you don't get hit with the same RFIs again and again and again and again. Absolutely key. And your 4th one is the visibility of de-risking your execution at every turn. You get the opportunity to de-risk, de-risk, and de-risk. And then get early warning indicator in place to react to something before it's too late. So that was absolutely key in there. And with that, I will hand it over to Yogesh.
So de-risking, continual de-risking in a context, because we talk about risks, but risks are those which we know, the known risks. That is good. But when we are into execution, it's those unknown or the surprises that spring up, which has to quickly route to a decision maker and give you the ability to take an action. Otherwise, I've missed the window. And this, if that is happening and we don't have a mechanism to go back from where that data originated, from a man, material, machinery, or a process, if I can't go back and correct it quickly, then again we are losing it. So that's where that is an important part. And now in terms of eliminating drag, in the lean world, there are different types of risk. And when you multiply it with the decisions, the other factors that are there, you have basically 48 different types of project drag. These are the things that slow you down. These are the things that you are carrying on your shoulders all along. So how do we, the ability to digitally drive each and every one of them so that it doesn't increase, a small spark becomes a fire. If we can eliminate these sparks or the friction points soon enough, we are continually de-risking when we are in execution. Everything was great when we had made the plan. It's on execution that we are failing. And that gap analysis in terms of some of the practices that are being followed, some method improvements, some conduct in terms of the weekly reviews or the monthly reporting, there are some changes that are introduced because what gets measured gets done, but measure the right thing. And that is very important part of putting into the overall project reporting and functionality so that it becomes really helpful. So just a little bit of a theory point of view. Yesterday this was in the discussion. Data becoming information and knowledge and wisdom, DIKW framework. People know that, but what good is wisdom if I cannot apply it, as I said, to my next work block? And that's where the reverse of a proactive decision, actions change, and to engage the party that originated the data. That becomes an important point. Otherwise, on a Tuesday, which you see in the frontline staff, something happens. By the time it gets reported up, it's the Monday of next week. And by the time there is something coming through the reporting, somebody took a decision, it takes us 3 weeks or so. If we can reduce this 3-week cycle or 3-week look behind to data and things that are happening to something which is within 24 hours, if we can respond, that's where we are truly driving AWP to the level that it is supposed to be, okay? And lean comes in that fashion too. So de-risking execution where you have brought things on the radar, you know its impact, you have a solution, and you gain knowledge, work pack by work pack. That is an important aspect of the digital way of doing, and the guardrails that protect the process and the data and the people who are participating in it. That's important, and that's what we are doing. And very quickly, data can stay in the vertical towers that you see where they have to be. We just bring the connectivity and fetch it when somebody needs it, or when you're ready to give it to somebody else. That yes, I'm done with this, it moves on. That's an important part of it, the ability to pick data. And behind that is a backbone of what I call the sum is greater than parts. We are all good at doing our own thing, but if we have an ability to see this holistically from not only the productivity and efficiency, but also the safety and quality aspects as well as completions, when you see things holistically, now you have the ability to truly drive value. Otherwise, in the morning, one session had suicide rates 10 times more than serious injuries and fatalities. Why? If we keep chasing productivity and keep chasing making money as the only objective, it puts tremendous pressure. And in chasing productivity, how many people really spoil their mental health and well-being or their families is problematic. So we have to look at things more holistically. Health, safety is important in execution as well. So the benefits which we look at is quite a few. I won't read each one of them, but as I said to you, the sum is greater than parts, and we need to be looking at it in a comprehensive manner, both from design and planning, which is part of our digital platform, as well as going into execution. So the ability to orchestrate so many moving parts in a unified way is an important aspect of how we do it, coupled with the digital technology, which is the drones, the RFID, IoT, and many other things. And as we build stuff, the digital ledger of what we are doing on a day-to-day basis leads to what we call a digital twin of execution. How many interruptions we had, how many times we reworked, how many times did I have holds or whatnot, that is important for me to know. That because when I build another one, I need to know what were my interruptions, rework, and holds and other things, so that I don't repeat the same mistake. So talking about next gen, the future of built environment, as we start concluding here, we are at an interesting time frame. Whatever in the world that we have built, which we call the built environments, the road, the rail, the airports and whatnot, that's going to be doubled in another 30 years. And if you talk about next generation, my daughter, she's probably more looking after clean energy, better infrastructure, sustainable societies. If we are building things, and if the society, in the place where you're building, if there is people who are not benefiting from it, you're not engaging the workforce, the gender equality is not promoted, they are not interested in those type of projects. So when we talk about next gen, for me, next gen is my children, and I'm sure for you. So if we are building things, and if you're not reducing the carbon footprint, construction generates 40% of CO2. So these EVs, the Teslas and all, that's in the range of 27%. We, as built environment, contribute 40%. We got to be doing something about that. And if we are talking about work packages, what is the carbon footprint of your work pack? As embodied carbon based on your materials, or when you're installing it, or when you're operating it. That continuity has to be visible, and the ability to see that happen is important. So every project needs to be delivered successfully, and it's just not from the cost and schedule point of view, it's also the carbon footprint. So as we conclude, digital AWP and lean, I believe it's the execution discipline and optimizing it from an end-to-end perspective. When Toyota is being so successful with the lean concept or Toyota production system, it was not just their factory. All their suppliers, the ancillary industries, and everybody else, the whole thing was uplifted. So it's not just that you practice it and others don't. You have to touch the supply chain. You have to touch and look at it more from an end-to-end perspective. Value by incremental gains is important. The improved processes and decision making is part of it. Accelerating execution, the visibility and granularity to where the data is coming from, and quickly adapt to a digitally evolving culture where it is enabling your managers, supervisors, the team is very important. And look at transforming things, yes, but through a transitionary approach, not through throw this all away, this is what is the new solution. No, industry rejects it very quickly. So if we can transition to digital, that's an important without the pain of disruption. So with that much, we are transforming how data centers are getting built with the sensitivity to sustainability and the carbon footprint. 3 years ago, in one of the Microsoft presentations, I learned how Microsoft is moving to partner with only those constructors, besides safety, who also have a good track record in sustainability and the carbon index.
Yeah, we actually made a commitment to the industry and to the world that we're going to be carbon neutral by 2030 and carbon negative by 2050. So that is a public information. Yeah. Thank you.
Are you ready to transform your project journey? Hopefully with this example and the call to action that this group is taking on, I think it is necessary. We have to build safely, smartly, and sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you.